open my banking app before bed just to check. The numbers look steady, even comforting in a way. Still, something in my chest feels tight, like a quiet question I can't answer. Armand is already asleep beside me, his breathing slow and even. His face looks free from any worry. I watch him for a moment, wondering why I can't feel the same stillness. I go over the numbers again in my head, quietly listing everything. Bills are paid, savings are in place, nothing is missing. Yet my thoughts keep moving, like they don't trust what's already enough. Nothing unusual happened today, no bad news or sudden change. The day moved as it always does, simple and manageable. But a small feeling stayed with me, quiet but persistent. My name is Clara, and my life looks steady from the outside. I have a family that feels safe and a routine that works. Maybe this feeling isn't about what I have, but something I haven't named yet. The morning starts the same way it always does. I move through the kitchen, following a routine I know by heart. Still, something feels slightly unsettled beneath it. Armand sits nearby, scrolling through his phone without urgency. His question sounds simple, almost automatic. I answer, but my mind is already somewhere else. I suddenly remember the bill that's almost due. My hands keep moving, but my attention shifts to the screen. Numbers appear, and they stay longer in my mind than they should. Mira's voice pulls me back without warning. I close the app quickly, like it's something I shouldn't linger on. For a moment, I try to return to being fully present. Everything continues as it should. Breakfast is served, bags are ready, nothing is out of place. Yet inside, it feels like I'm always catching up to something unseen. Armand leaves with a light smile, asking if everything is fine. I nod without thinking too much about it. The answer feels practiced, even to myself. The house becomes quiet again. I repeat the word fine in my head, trying to settle into it. Somehow, it doesn't land the way it used to. I started noticing something small but constant. I was always the one keeping track of everything at home. Bills, groceries, even doctor appointments seemed to live in my head. At first, it didn't feel unusual. I had been managing things like this for years. It simply became part of how the house functioned. But one day, I forgot something simple. Just a bar of soap. It stayed on my mind longer than it should have. Armand said it lightly, like it was nothing urgent. I nodded without thinking much. Still, something felt slightly out of place inside me. I kept returning to one quiet question. Why did every later seem to land on me? It wasn't heavy, just quietly persistent. I began to observe things more closely. Armand rarely noticed the small details around the house, the kind of details that quietly keep everything running. And I realized something simple about myself. I always knew what needed attention, even before it was visible. Maybe that was why I couldn't fully relax. I decided to stay quiet for a day. I didn't remind anyone about anything. I just let things unfold without me. By the end of the day, a few things slipped. Not big, but noticeable. The kind of small gaps I usually fill without thinking. Armand looked confused when he noticed. He paused for a moment before asking. I realized he wasn't used to checking these things. I stepped in almost immediately. It felt automatic. My body moved before I even thought about it. And in that moment, something became clear. I rarely leave space for others to take responsibility. Maybe I've been holding too much, too tightly. But alongside that thought, another feeling appeared. A quiet sense of being alone and carrying it all. It wasn't loud, but it stayed. These two feelings stayed quietly within me. Not fighting, just existing side by side. I sat with them, without rushing to fix anything. We sit at the dinner table like we always do. The plates are warm, and the conversation flows easily. I notice how everything looks exactly how it should. Myra laughs at something small, the kind of laugh I've heard many times. It fills the room without effort. I listen, holding on to that sound a little longer. Armand talks about his day, steady and familiar. I nod at the right moments, following the rhythm. It feels like I've done this countless times before. From the outside, everything feels warm and complete. Inside, I notice a quiet heaviness I can't explain. It sits there, without asking for attention. I go to bed earlier than usual. Not because I'm tired, but because I want the thoughts to quiet down. Sleep feels like a gentle pause. Morning comes, just like yesterday. I move through each step without thinking much. My smile appears, but it feels practiced. Nothing seems wrong when I look around. Everything is in place, just as planned, and yet nothing feels truly light. Myra sits on the floor, quietly drawing with colored pencils. I notice how focused she is, as if nothing else exists in her world. The house feels still, and I let myself slow down for a moment. She proudly calls me over and points at her drawing. I see the three of us standing side by side. It looks simple, but something about it holds her whole understanding of us. I lean closer and begin to notice the details she added. My figure is drawn with many things around me. It feels oddly accurate in a way I didn't expect. Bags, lists, and small everyday items fill my hands in the picture. I recognize each one without needing to think. It reflects a quiet weight I've stopped questioning. Our man stands beside me in the drawing, smiling simply. His hands are empty and there's nothing added around him. I pause longer than I expected. I gently ask her why I'm holding so many things. The question feels small, but it lingers in my chest. I realize I don't fully know the answer myself. She answers casually, as if it's obvious. In her world, I am the one who carries everything. I sit with that thought longer than I expected to. The sentence was simple when I heard it. Still, it stayed with me longer than I expected. I could feel it settling quietly in my chest. I never really noticed how visible this was. From the outside, it might have looked obvious, but I was too used to being inside it. It wasn't just physical tiredness. My mind kept running even when everything was quiet. I carried thoughts that never really paused. Over time, I learned to manage everything quietly. It became normal not to say much. Even when it felt heavy, I stayed silent. Armand never really knew the full picture. Not because he didn't care, I just never found the moment to explain it. I told myself this was responsibility. It felt like the right thing to do. But maybe part of it was holding everything too tightly. And somewhere along the way, I felt more alone than I expected. Not suddenly, but gradually. It was a quiet kind of loneliness. That night felt unusually quiet, even though nothing had really changed. I sat beside Armand without rushing into words. There was a heaviness I had been carrying longer than I realized. The words came out quietly, almost as if I was testing them. I admitted something I had been postponing. It felt unfamiliar to say it out loud. Armand turned to me in a way that felt different from usual. He wasn't reacting, just trying to understand. That pause made the moment feel more real. I tried to explain the quiet pressure I'd been holding alone. It wasn't loud, but it was constant. Saying it made me notice how long it had been there. He stayed quiet longer than I expected. Then he said something simple that shifted my perspective. I realized we had been assuming different things all along. I responded with a small smile that surprised even me. It wasn't relief, but it felt lighter. For the first time, I questioned my own assumptions too. In that moment, nothing around us changed, but something aligned. We were finally looking at the same thing without trying to fix it. And somehow, that was enough for now. The next day, Armand asked something unexpected. His voice was steady, not rushed. I paused longer than I thought I would. The question itself was simple. Nothing complicated, nothing urgent. But it landed differently this time. We started with small things. Bills, schedules, things I used to track alone. Saying them out loud felt unfamiliar at first. It wasn't perfect right away. We missed a few things here and there. Old habits didn't disappear overnight. But now, I wasn't the only one remembering. Things didn't sit only in my head anymore. There was space where there used to be pressure. I began to loosen my grip, just a little. It didn't feel natural at first, but there was a quiet kind of relief in it. The house didn't change. Everything looked the same as before. But somehow, it all felt lighter to carry. I used to think enough was something I could count. Numbers felt clear, measurable, and safe. As long as they added up, I believed everything else would settle too. But over time, I noticed something else. Feeling enough also meant not carrying everything alone. It felt lighter when someone else quietly held a part of it with me. Sometimes I don't even notice how much I'm holding. Small things pile up quietly in my hands. By the end of the day, it feels heavier than I expected. And maybe others don't step in, not because they don't care. Maybe I never truly put things down. Maybe I just kept adjusting my grip instead. If you've ever felt this way, you're not the only one. Some things don't need to be carried alone. Maybe enough also means letting someone stay beside you,